Hey friends, it's Kirsten. Welcome to the Confident Dancer YouTube channel. Today I have another collaboration with Kathryn Morgan, a woman I am honored to call my friend and such an inspiration to thousands, hundreds of thousands, literally, dancers all over the world. I love what she stands for. I love that she comes from this prestigious background, being a soloist for both New York City Ballet and Miami City Ballet. And she's judged for YGP. Like, this woman has had a career, okay? But she is a beautiful, and not but, and she is a beautiful person with such a purpose and a message to share, making ballet inclusive, talking about subjects that are difficult to talk about, that are often not talked about. She really has a heart to encourage dancers of all stages of life, people with all sorts of different goals, not just those who are wanting to be professionals, but also even recreational dancers, adult dancers. So I just love that anytime we talk, I can tell she really has a heart to uplift the ballet community. So I'm excited to share this video with you in which we talk about the things that conventional ballet training doesn't teach you that you need to know if you want to be the best dancer you can be. Okay? Because technique class is great, but it's just there to teach you technique. So we are both going to talk about things that dancers need to pursue on their own outside of technique class to really be a well-rounded artist, but then also some ways that ballet training could use a little update, you know, in order to nurture more well-rounded artists and healthier humans. We talk about a lot, so I hope you really enjoy this conversation. Stay tuned all the way through the end, and please do let us know what you think about it. I always love to hear your feedback. Without further ado, let's welcome Kathryn. Kathryn, welcome back to the channel.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Hi, y'all.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, today we're going to talk about things that conventional ballet training doesn't teach you that all ballet dancers need to know. I think this is kind of a trendy-ish, let's say relevant topic right now, because there are more people out there who are seeing the gaps in ballet training or in ballet culture and trying to fill it on Instagram with other tips and things like that. So I'm really interested to get your insight on this, given that you have quite a background with training at SAB and other places. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Off the bat, what are some things that come to mind as things, even when you got into your professional career, that you were like, wait, I was totally not prepared for this and I wish I was taught these things?
That, number one, the dancing side of ballet is the easy part. 100%. The mental side of ballet is the hard part. For example, can you hold it together in an audition? Yes, you've been training, but actually being in a pressure cooker situation is mental. Your technique doesn't change, but it's how your brain goes, I can do this, or oh my gosh, I can't do this. When the director walks in the room, can you hold it together? Once you get hired, can you stand in the back for your first year learning everything and doing nothing? Can you keep it together for 6 hours and learn 40 different ballets at the same time? You know what I mean? It's not the technique. You're happier, and I know every professional dancer would agree with me. You'd rather dance for 6 hours straight than stand for 6 hours straight.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it hurts. And so it's these little things of like, okay, can you make it through a rehearsal when they're yelling at you, you're in the wrong place, you know, and you still have to do the steps, yet your brain is like, what are you doing? Can you step in for somebody whose spot is your spot but the other side and reverse it? You know, so it's like the mental side of ballet is what I had no idea. I thought it was all about how high I could get my leg, how many turns I can do. Oh, my feet, you know, that's the easy part. It's the hard part is this.
The mental fortitude is, oh my gosh, it requires so much. And there is a certain element of ballet training that does expose you to overcoming challenges, taking responsibility, being able to do hard things. So there's a level in which you're prepared enough. but the emphasis on how much of your life experience will either be better or worse for not knowing this or knowing this, it's not really placed so much in ballet training, and I'm not even sure like how much it can be. I know there's always room for improvement, but I'm wondering if you kind of think back to your training, do you ever feel like there were some teachers who were trying to share some of these lessons with you, but it just like it wasn't clicking yet?
Oh, for sure. Because when you're young, and these were the days of no social media. When you're
Mhm.
young, we watched a video of myself just the other day when I was 15. You could see all I cared about was how high I can get my leg. I'd crank that penche up, and it wasn't about a lot of the transitions and stuff, but I had no idea that it was going to be difficult mentally. Because
Mhm.
even like dealing with quote unquote mean girls at ballet school when you're young, girls can be very mean to each other and clicks and roles and this and that. You don't realize
Yeah.
that that's actually not going to change so much when you get in a company. You're going to have to learn that
Mm.
you're not going to get the role. You're going to have to learn that the director may not like you as much, and that's the same thing as when you're young of the teacher not liking you as much. So all these little things when you're young, you don't have any clue that it's actually starting to prepare you for later, and it's not going to be
Yeah.
that different later. I remember one of my teachers who's unfortunately no longer alive at SAB, Sean Lavery. I thought he hated me. I thought he
Mhm.
hated me, the way he corrected me, the way da, da, da. And I realized later he was actually training me to get a little bit tougher and to challenge myself mentally, because once I got in the company, he became a great mentor of mine. But when I was at the
Right.
school, I was convinced he hated me just because he was
Mm.
always on me. He was always picking on me. Da, da, da. But he's the one that gave me Juliet the first time. So it's like you
Wow.
look back and you're like, oh,
Hmm.
oh.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I would say there's a lesson in there. I don't think that we're really taught. And by the way, with all of these things, like we're not taught, I'm not saying it to like throw shade at ballet teachers
Mm-mm.
necessarily, because you and I both teach and we know sometimes it's like you are just having to choose how to use your time in order to get to Grand Allegro if you're lucky in a 90-minute class, much less a shorter class than that. You don't always have time for life lessons. A lot of times mentoring happens when it's possible, maybe in conversations between classes or in rehearsals or in meetings one-on-one if your studio does that. So there aren't always opportunities for this. So I want to validate that. But the whole point of this video is really to encourage dancers with awareness of things that you can start to take into your own hands and start to work on in yourself in different ways. And if you don't know how, just send me a direct message on Instagram. We can talk about it because I know sometimes it can be confusing. Hey dancers, I hope you're really enjoying the video so far. I just wanted to briefly talk to you about the Confident Dancer Coaching Program so that you know this resource is available to you and any other dancer you know who is tired of mental struggles like comparison, self-doubt, insecurities, imposter syndrome, performance anxiety, all of these mental struggles that are so common for us dancers, especially those of us at the pre-professional to early professional level. We know it's common, but for those of you who are struggling and are tired of struggling, you want to be a confident dancer, you want to trust yourself, you want to know what you have to offer, you want to feel good about your skill set, and you want to have the mindset that will equip you to feel your best and dance your best and accomplish your career goals. Y'all, that is what this program is about. That is why I designed it, and it is designed specifically with dancers' desires, needs, and goals in mind, so that you have support from a professional who's not only qualified as a coach and as a trainer of neurolinguistic programming, but also with someone who has a background as a professional ballet dancer and who understands what you're going through, who understands what you want. So you don't have to explain yourself. You feel understood and supported by a professional who knows how to help you get to where you want to go. That is the support I provide in this program. So if you are interested or you know someone who is, all you have to do is click the link down below to visit kirstenkemp.com, learn more about this program, everything that it includes, how it works, read amazing testimonials from past clients, and schedule a free 30-minute consultation where you and I will have the chance to get to know each other, talk about your goals, your challenges, and see if the Confident Dancer Coaching Program would be the perfect fit to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. So I can't wait to meet with some of you. Again, apply for that free consultation. It's no strings attached. See if it's going to work for you, and go ahead and apply now because spots are limited each month to only 5 dancers. So apply now. Can't wait to talk to you, and let's get on with the rest of the video. We tend to personalize everything that happens and interpret it in a way where it's like, that look was about me and they don't like me. That dancer looks more technically talented than me and is getting good treatment. I don't have a future in ballet. See, these are all narratives that are not necessarily the absolute truth at all, or maybe true, period. And so I try to suggest that with my students of like, hey, it's really not personal. Like, this is all for you guys, for your growth, but be careful of how you personalize things, because that will really start to eat away at you the older you get. You know, all of those beliefs of they don't like me, I'm not good enough, like recognize that it's just easy to take a few little cues that you're getting from someone and spin it into, you know, they hate you and you're not good enough, all that stuff.
We all think it's about us, and I've done that too, but I learned also in a company that if a director is in a bad mood, if a director looks at you the wrong way, that director has an entire company to run. They might have just had a bad board meeting where the board said, no, you can't do this, blah, 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 blah. They come down, they have to coach, they have to teach. I remember there was one Romeo and Juliet rehearsal that Peter was in a really bad mood and we all thought it was us, but later we found out that the sets were not on time or something, like they were behind, you know. So it's not always about your dancing when the director's having a bad day, when the teacher's having a bad day, you know, because they might be going through something that has nothing whatsoever to do with you and it's still in their mind. I know if something's happened, like if Kristen and I have had a disagreement, if we've gotten weird news from something, if my mother and I had a fight or whatever, that especially with personal relationships, I'm one of those people that it's still in there when I'm teaching. So if I seem to be like shorter or whatever with people, it might have nothing whatsoever to do with my student. I can't get, oh my gosh, we had a fight and I'm going to have to stew on this for 6 hours. He's going to be at work until 5 and he's not going to come home. And then we're going to have to maybe have it, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things that has nothing whatsoever to do with teaching. And as dancers, we are artists. And very few of us can compartmentalize. And like totally turn it off. And
then even if you do, you have to open up those compartments later and work through it.
So perfect point. Try not to take everything so personally. Easier said than done. But
Oh, totally. Okay. Next question is, what are some things that you actually learned in your ballet training that you had to unlearn later?
Oh, first of all, that as a young person, as a 16, 17, 18-year-old, yes, you have to pay your dues. Yes, you have to work hard. Yes, you have to get that spot. But as you get older, working hard doesn't necessarily mean you have to do the combination 18 times. If you're injured, you have to work smartly. And unfortunately, some directors still, because it's the very old way of doing it, 1970s, 1980s stigma, that we just work, push. But as we're becoming more knowledgeable of health and wellness, you realize that a 35-year-old cannot dance the same and work the same as a 15-year-old. You know, when you're young, your body's healthy and we're going and they can just push through. I could push through things at 18 that I thought were nothing. Now I'd be like,
oh my gosh. I feel so fragile now compared to 14-year-old me. Like dislocated my kneecap and I was like, I'm back for an audition in 2 days.
Yes. Oh, good. My foot's on backwards. No problem. But as you get older, you have to work smarter, not harder. You can't do Grand Allegro 4 times if you've got 6 hours of rehearsal that day. Some of us would jump enough to get our muscles going and then stop. You know, again, the young ones who are there to prove themselves, who are there to be noticed, you do have to do that. But once you're a little more established, once you've been on stage a long time, once, you know, mid-20s, that kind of, then you start to realize, okay, I can't get through 6 hours of rehearsal if I do the combination 4 times. Like, I can't, especially in a company like New York City Ballet when we were on every night. You just can't. And so you start to learn that working hard doesn't necessarily mean repetition. I learned that the hard way. I sprained an ankle when I was actually only 21 in a Who Cares rehearsal. I was doing the Pink Girl, and she does that manège, piqué turn, hop and all cone. And I had done it probably 6 times already, and it wasn't right. It was also the last rehearsal of the day. That's another thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I should have said, you know what, can we maybe just do this tomorrow? This is not working today. But I did it one more time, sprained my ankle, off for 3 months. And so you just have to learn as you get older that working hard is actually more important for older dancers to cross train, to do the balancing out Pilates, yoga, different muscles, than just like pound yourself into the ground. When as a young dancer, you're told work, 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 work. And that just has different meanings as you get older. So that's a big one.
Totally agree. Yes, yeah. I think a great point to make for the dancers watching is that, like I was saying earlier, even though there's always room for improvement in how dancers are trained, and we are seeking to address that in this video, part of the intention of this video is to also say it's not like technique training. There's a reason why it's called technique class. Because it's for technique. It's not going to be your therapy necessarily. It's not there to like necessarily train your mind perfectly for the job that you'll be doing later, or, you know, for the rest of your life, whatever your goals are. It's not cross training. And yes, so in all these things, training methods can improve, and it is really important to take what we're saying in these videos or more, you know, we're not going to cover everything, or you can even disagree with some ideas, and that's cool too. But the idea is to ask, like, how can we as dancers take that acknowledgement that this won't be complete for me, and even accept that, to be able to say, okay, well then how am I going to learn what I need to thrive, and then seek that out on my own, you know? What do you think about that idea? Like, what are some things that you think dancers could be seeking out on their own?
I think you have to figure out what works for you. I think that's kind of goes on with diets and exercise and how you approach class and how you train. I mean, I remember very much so that a couple of the principals at City Ballet, once they got to a certain point, they never came into company class. They went to steps. They did not want to, like, they wanted to start their day on their own terms.
Yeah.
And not feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to like go and prove it. I remember Wendy Whalen was one of them. Wendy Whalen always went to Willie Berman's class at steps. Maria Karowski always went to Willie Berman's class at steps.
Yeah.
And I remember watching them going, like they're so figuring out what works for their bodies and what works for them mentally. And Wendy swore by Willie Berman's class. But a lot of people like myself looked at that class and was like, yeah, no, can't do that. So it's just, you have to kind of, it's trial and error. It's sort of looking at being a dancer as a whole. And this is the other thing actually that ballet doesn't teach you, is that being a ballet dancer and being a ballerina is glamorous 10% of the time. The actual day-to-day, the day-to-day ballet is hard. You get to you would do all this rehearsal for one, maybe two shows, because there's multiple casts, there's this and that, you know, and it's lots of preparation. It's blood, sweat, and tears. It's being in the studio for one or two shows, even in a big company. So you have to kind of look at it a different way. You have to look at your career going, okay, it's not about the tiara. I'm not going to wear the tiara all that much. I'm going to have to learn how to enjoy and get through class every day, and the cross training on my off days, and however your diet is. Do you know what I mean? And so that's part of it as well. It's not just figuring out what works for you, but making it sustainable, because the glamour part, you know, curtain comes down, tiara comes off. Yeah. So
it's so true.
Yeah. I thought I'd have it made once I joined a company. Oh, it's going to be great after. Oh, no. No.
Oh my God.
It's hard. Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah, it is. I think there are so many things I even wrote down prior to this conversation of like, we're not really taught healthy versus unhealthy pressure that we put on ourselves. And I even would love to ask it as a question to you when you're talking about knowing how you can't do Grand Allegro 4 times if you have a whole, you know, day of dancing. I've always been curious for myself, because this is something I don't think I've even mastered yet, which is like knowing the difference of when to push, when my expectations are actually too high for myself and I'm pushing too much. But I think more specifically that nuance of like, when do I think of the rest of my day and say, like, you know what, I'm going to save myself, and when do I throw myself into it?
It's tricky. I find that, at least for my body and what worked for me, is if we were not in performance season, I would push more in class because you're working on getting in performance shape. If I didn't have a lot of rehearsal, I would push more in class. If I knew I had 6 hours of rehearsal, then I'd take it down a little bit. If there was a performance that night, I'm going to do just as much in class. That's not the day to work on my technique. The time to work on your technique is when you're not performing. When you are performing, okay, we're just going to get everything going, we're going to get it firing, and then we're going to save the peak performance for the show. That's something you learn as well, because athletes talk about it all the time. I want to peak at the Olympics. How do you do that? They have a very specific plan of how they peak at the Olympics. You don't want to peak too early because then you blow it at the Olympics. Like, I can't imagine, first of all. Can't imagine. But it's the same thing as a dancer. As a dancer, you have to do your best dancing at 7:30 or 8 p.m. Sometimes later if you're third ballet.
If you have like a solo in the third act. That happened to me so many times.
Yeah.
Like Capella, third act, 2 hours into the ballet, I'm like, I'm coming on stage for the first time.
Sleeping Beauty, third act. Sugar Plum. The poor cavaliers in Balanchine Sugar Plum don't come on until the pas de deux, which is like an hour and a half in. So they're like twiddling their thumbs backstage like, I was warm an hour ago, now I'm not. So it's just like, I remember there was some ballet, I think it was Western, that always went last. And I was second movement, and I looked at the clock one day, and I'm standing there, and it was like 10 p.m. And I'm like, I'm in point shoes at 10 p.m., and I haven't danced yet. This should be illegal. Like, I was just like,
oh my God.
So you have to learn that. And so that's not something you think about as a 16-year-old.
Yeah, it's managing priorities.
Yep.
That's what Sasha De Sola said. She came on my channel, and she was talking about knowing what you're trying to accomplish with every hour of your day and channeling your energy into just that focus. Don't let your mind go into, I'm trying to impress this teacher and I need to do the fouettes at the end of class because everyone else is doing them. Tunnel vision on what you're trying to accomplish. Another thing that I think isn't trained very well, and I just see it a lot in the dancers that I work with, is not being able to, or it's not being able to, not yet, having the practice of, instead of black and white thinking, more of that nuanced thinking. An example of that is how to strive for excellence, also with acceptance of your shortcomings.
Right.
It's that black and white thinking that is so often perpetuated in ballet training, that it's like there's a good way to do something and there's a bad way, right and wrong. And if you train in that way since you're a kid, you start to look at the world through that filter, but the world doesn't really fit into black and white. And the more rigid we are in our thinking, the more I see patterns like perfectionism, like an over-reliance on routine, almost in like a superstitious kind of way. If I don't do this, this, and this, and this, then it's going to be a bad show. And so being able to think in more of a nuanced, see the gray area, acknowledge it, be okay with it kind of a way, and balancing things like excellence and acceptance, or striving and acceptance, that's hard. It's hard. And I think dancers really need to be able to step into that the older they get, so that they don't stay stuck in patterns of like self-criticism, perfectionism, only being able to see their faults, things like that.
And it's true, because as a young dancer, I remember wanting to dance everything. I want to do everything. I want to do every principal role and da-da-da. And now I'm like, you get a little older and like, do I actually want to do tarantella? Not really. Nope. I'm good.
I'm good. I'll hang up my tambourine.
Nope. And once you accept that I'm never going to have the technique of Tyler Peck. Tyler Peck, you can throw her out there and do it. She'll do anything. She can spin on her head and whatever. I'm not that way. And once you start accepting that and going, you know what, I'm really good at this, 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 and this. And I ended up loving what I was good at. I actually ended up not wanting to do leotard ballets. They would come in the rep and I'd be like, good, I have a night off. Like, and once you start accepting that, you end up enjoying what you're doing more, because again, you might only get 1 or 2 shows. And so if you put all this thing on one show and you psych yourself out, it goes by. That's happened to me many times. And you're like, I did all that work and I actually didn't enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to learn how to just be accepting. And another example is different body types. Let's take height, for example.
Yeah.
The taller dancers are not going to be able to do what the tiny little short ones can do. And vice versa, the tiny little short ones might not have the line. So you have to realize that you're not going to be able to excel at everything. You're not going to be able to be perfect at everything. You've got to find out what your strengths are and own it and accept the faults. Work on if you're not good at Petit Allegro, Tarantella. Work on it, but it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. And it's such a great reframe to, I like to say, own your niche, which it's like own your specialty and do it really well and love it. And I think what you said, it spells out freedom, because acceptance really does give you freedom. It's not accepting less.
Yeah.
Or being like, well, I had these dreams for myself.
No. Yeah.
But I guess I'll just be okay with sucking. That's fine. No, like that's not how it is.
No.
It's not settling. It's embracing what you have. There's this kind of philosopher, businessman guy, Naval Ravikant. I think his stuff is really cool. And he said the point of playing the game is to become free of it. Mm-hmm. Instead of continuing to play new games of like, I got good at Petit Allegro, now I have to win all these other games. It's like, yes, if you really want to improve it, great. But are you destroying your own happiness by constantly being like, I have to win every game? Like, the point isn't just to win the game just to win, it's to gain freedom.
It goes back to what you and I talked about on our last 2 videos. See those? That how to, instead of, oh, this is happening to me, how can I make it work for me? So like, I'm not good at Petit Allegro. Okay. Instead of going, I'm not good at Petit Allegro, it's like, all right, not great at that. What am I good at? Let's own that.
Right, exactly. And in technique training, of course, it's your teacher's job to say, okay, let's work on that Petit Allegro, let's work on that turnout. And that's great, because that's their job. They're there to help you strengthen your weak spots. But also, I think my honest critique, though, of a lot of training methods is that it really focuses on eradicating flaws instead of building up strengths. And it's not even on purpose. I think it's just this pattern of thinking that's been passed down from every generation of like, oh no, I know as for myself as a teacher, I have to be conscious about this. When I watch dancers, I can see everything that's wrong and be like, okay, how do I need to correct them? Not because I want to see the things that are wrong, but I'm seeing, how can I help them? How can I help them?
Right.
And I have to stop and be like, I can help them by saying, what you did there was great. I see that you're really good at that. Keep doing it. Here's an idea of how to take it further. If you're not hearing that very much from your teachers, okay, it would be really cool if they changed that. And you can start being your own best teacher in that way. Look in the mirror, find something that you thought went pretty well, and instead of just using your energy to fix what you see as wrong, put some of that energy towards turning up the volume on what's good.
Yes, absolutely. Because the other thing is, you can train your whole life, but things are going to happen. You might get injured. You might have a show where the power doesn't work, the music stops, the orchestra's too fast, the orchestra's too slow, theater's cold, so you're never really going to get warm. Like, outside things beyond your control are going to happen as well. So you also have to be content in yourself and in the performance that that's not going to ruin your whole day. Just like one flaw in class is not going to ruin your whole day.
Yes. I'm curious, as we kind of start to wrap up a little bit, what do you think of the idea that technique training is currently missing the encouragement to trust yourself and your own opinion instead of just what the teacher thinks and says?
It's missing the physiological standpoint, because so many teachers teach in a way that doesn't work for some people the way they are literally built. Mm-hmm. For the big one that comes to mind for me is when they say flat back. Flatten your back, flatten your back, flatten your back. Not everybody, self included. I am naturally swayed. I have a tush. If I dance with a flat back, I would literally be rounded. So it's not that you're trying to flatten out your back, you're trying to lengthen the front. That's what I always say, lengthen the front.
Yeah.
Don't flatten the back, lengthen the front. And so there are these little things that some people, the way their bones are, the way their joints are, they're just not going to be able to do. So what teachers have to kind of do is look at students individually instead of as a whole, this is how it should be. Your back should be flat. That's where we run into problems because that's not going to work for some kids. Some kids, the way their femurs are. I've seen girls with their arm joints are different, so you have to look at students more individually. Teachers need to look at students individually, not as a class.
Yeah, so if you're a dancer and you're feeling like I keep getting these corrections and they're just falling flat, like it doesn't work for me, instead of going to something is wrong with me, it doesn't even mean point fingers and be like, this approach is terrible. Maybe it is, but like, how does it really help you to focus on that? Instead, you can start by asking the teacher, saying like, hey, I'm really struggling to implement this correction. Can you help me to understand and share what you're feeling in your body? If they're a person, with a somewhat open mind and they really do want to help you, they might be like, wow, okay, I'm a little surprised you're feeling that way. Let's see how we can make this work. And they'll spend like 2 minutes with you. Maybe you guys can work something out. Or you can also take this awareness that maybe a different method would work for you and look at other studios, find other teachers online, find other Instagram accounts, for example, who are going to give different tips from different perspectives, and it will start to alleviate that conclusion of something is wrong with me to, okay, well, maybe I can find a better approach.
Yeah. And it's just also as a teacher, you have to learn how to say the same thing several different ways. That's for ballet, that's for anything. Like I've had to learn that some people in turns like the opposite shoulder. Some people like the same shoulder. Some people like instead of head around, eyes around. You just have to kind of go, okay, if this is not working for a kid, you've got to flip it around and say it a different way. And you can't just assume that, well, this is how I say it, so you have to figure it out. You've got to teach them individually. Like Chris has come up with one that he started saying everything lifted. Instead of like shoulders down, he'll say ears up. And it makes, and I was like, oh, that's good.
That's cool.
He's like, because sometimes with the down thing with young ones, they end up just dropping.
Yes.
And he was like, so for young ones, I start saying everything lift instead of drop. Lift the ears, lift the heart.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's good. And it's just like, it's just a different way of saying it.
Yes, totally. There was like one last thing I was thinking about really, and it was around the idea of like trusting yourself and your own opinions. And obviously there is this balance of show respect to your teachers, but also do respect yourself as well. And I think a great way to start developing your own artistic taste, your own knowledge of who you are even, is to ask questions. That's what I noticed. The encouragement is kind of missing. Instead, a lot of teachers were just sharing tips like do this, and it kind of trains dancers to not necessarily be good learners. And I'm not talking about learning choreography. I mean picking up bigger picture lessons. We're always looking for that next tip. Tell me how to do it. Just tell me the steps and how many reps I should do. Instead, I like to ask dancers questions and tell them, ask yourself this. And then I'll have them raise their hands, and a lot of times they stonewall me and will not say a word, and I'm just like,
okay, yeah,
I can handle a discomfort. Okay, like come on, guys, I really want you to talk. And having this encouragement to ask questions and be curious, like, how does this work? Why do we do this? What do I think? What looks good on my body? Everyone can take that away and just start to become curious, and that will lead to new levels of learning and awareness, and also knowledge of who you are and what's best for you.
One of the biggest things I teach, particularly if it's a masterclass situation, my number one thing I teach is trusting your own dancing. Because when I started to trust my own dancing, life got better. And teachers, you can steal this, I don't care. But what I'll do is we'll do the waltz pirouette combination, and they'll do it and blah, 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 and they do it how they do it. And then I'll go, okay, go from the corner and make it up. I want some sort of turn from across, just do it. And I put on like a coda, and all of a sudden they're throwing in doubles and they're shinning and they're step up and fouettes, and I'm like, huh. And so then I stop the music and I say, okay, what was the difference between the last combination and this one? And they just look at me and I said, it's because you had to trust yourself. You had to do it. I didn't sit here and tell you to do tombe, pas de règle, glissade, whatever. You had to do it. And look at the doubles and look at the turn. See what happens when you trust yourself. And they're just like, you know.
That's so good.
Yeah. So steal
Oh my
it.
gosh.
Please steal it.
That's so good. Do they totally freak out?
Yeah. They're like, oh my gosh. And then they go to the left. And most of them, you know, who are lefties are not as common. Even on the left, they're like, pique turn and chaîné. I'm like, look at the left. What happened? Yeah. So it's a mental thing. Going back to the very first thing, ballet is mental.
Oh, that is so cool. Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. We should probably wrap up
to
leave a little mystery in this conversation, I guess.
Well, we'll come back. We'll do more.
Yes. Oh, we totally will. Thank you so much for this. What is Kathryn and Morgan and Friends? Kathryn and Morgan and Friends.
Kathryn Morgan.
Kathryn Morgan and Friends up to these days.
We have our adult and summer intensive. Specifically for adults 18 and up. Our July week has sold out, so we have one for August in Huntington Beach, California. August 15th through the 19th. So if you're interested and you want to come have a week-long intensive as an adult, sign up and we'll be there. I'm going to teach. Chris is going to teach. Yeah, oh my gosh, I'd love to have you. We should talk off air, actually. That'd be awesome.
Yes.
But yeah, that's what we're up to now. We're also working on possibly a South Coast, Gulf Coast one in October. Stay tuned.
In my neck of the woods.
Yeah. So stay tuned. My goal is to do these sort of things. You know, we'll have master classes for younger students as well, but for adults, because I think they get forgotten about. So I want to do like intensives for them year round.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Well, yay! This was so good.
Thanks.
Thank you for this. Thank you everyone for watching.
Bye.
We'll see you again.
Sounds good.
Bye.